Welcome at our third episode or conversations about privacy, data governance, security and trust. My name is Marcel Nieuwpoort. I'm partner technology strategist here at the partner organization at Microsoft. And today we're going to have a third conversation, back again with my good friend Eduard. Please introduce yourself, Eduard.
Yeah. So Eduard Valkenburg, I'm a cloud solution architect focused on data and AI and everything that has to do with data in the partner group. Great to be back and great to have this guest.
Yes, talking of guest, welcome Baart. It's so good to have you here. I know we did a sort of last minute, call you, and you were so friendly and kind to join us today in this conversation. Please already have a short introduction, and then we'll take you to the agenda of this conversation.
Yeah, sure. Looking forward. Thanks, Marcel.
Yeah.
My name is Baart Voorn. I'm the founder of STRM Privacy. I live in Rotterdam. And before this, I did my PhD and was head of R&D at Aaltelhuizen, a big retailer.
Yes, of course. Famous retailer in the Netherlands, also known as Albert Heijn.
Yep.
Some of my ISVs actually have great solutions working with them. But besides that, today we have an agenda and a little bit about why we have these conversations. This is a conversation on the topic of data governance, privacy, trust and security. Because we believe that many of our partners and customers are already using our public cloud services, but still some are still hesitant, and we like to understand why, what's keeping them from going to the cloud, what can we do, what can we learn, how can we become even better as a cloud security vendor and privacy vendor, so to speak. So we want to learn also from you what your customers are telling you,
yeah.
And this is your field of operations. I believe your company even has privacy in the name.
Yeah, it does.
So maybe you can already do a little bit of a conversation about what does your company do, where you're based, and why are you good at it, and then we'll dive into the conversations. We have 8 theses on which we can have this conversation.
Very provoking.
In the next 45 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, let's go. So,
please introduce your company.
No, yeah, I will, but maybe it's more relevant why I started it. So I started the company 2 years ago with my co-founder Pim. He's from bol.com.
Yeah.
And in my previous job, I had access to a lot of data.
Yeah.
But it oftentimes stayed with access because turning it into value was super hard.
Yeah.
Mostly due to privacy reasons. So I spent weeks, months to more or less negotiate how can we use this data for this specific purpose. And that was insanely frustrating because there was a lot of value on the table.
Yeah.
I think healthy recommendations or robots in stores but then I had to go through all this coordination with the legal team, the compliance team, and sometimes that just took away the momentum for a project. Yeah. Sometimes it was also just cancelled. Yeah. And if that's being done for the right reasons, right, then it's okay. Yeah. But oftentimes why and how you could use data is still a very gray area, especially for non-technical people. And then they have to talk with technical people. And then stuff becomes hard. So I lost a lot of speed. Yeah. And I built up some frustration. And that's why I was super happy when I met Pim. He worked at Bol and said, oh, we don't really have this problem because we solved this differently. And I was like, indeed, I was very positively surprised. I'm like, okay, tell more. Yeah. And this was also, I think, the best way to start a company. Problem, solution.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, so 2 years ago we started. Yeah. And what we do right now is, I would say, we translate privacy from paper, so from a policy, into actual data transformations to usable data.
Okay. And my next question would be, how do you do this?
How do you do that? Yeah. No, we do that in 2 ways. So first thing is we say you have to shift left, which means if you want to solve privacy in a good way, go where a data point starts living. Right? It can be a click, a scroll, can be a sensor measurement. But if you're there at the moment when a data point starts living, you can classify it, you can attach the legal grounds, you can tell the rest of the organization more or less what you want to do with that data, what the purpose is of gathering it. So the first premise on which we built the company was shift left. So go fix privacy as soon as you can. Okay. And the second assumption was we have to facilitate this hard conversation between legal and tech. Yeah. These two very, I would say, very different kind of people as well.
So you put a lawyer and an engineer in one room?
Yeah. Then we leave the room. We leave, no joke. No, so what we do right now is, if you want to shift left, you also mean you have to to think about what you want to do with data very early on.
Yeah.
And if you involve legal in that step already, together with the tech team, you can together define, hey, what is the bare minimum data that we need? What do we want to do with it? How should we anonymize it? How should we treat it? And if you kind of solidify those agreements into the data, and legal can then more or less let it go because it's structured.
It's already classified.
And not only in paper, but also in the actual data pipeline. And the data teams can just build, and legal can sleep.
And then you then also feed only the usable data into a data lake so that everybody has access and can actually create value from the data?
Yeah, so I told you a bit why we do it and how, the two assumptions, but we do it indeed in 4 steps. So we start with making a data schema, describing what does the data look like and what are you allowed to do with it. Then we more or less enforce that, what we call data contract. So the data only comes into your pipelines when it fully meets the requirements. And then indeed we transform it into what we call privacy streams, and these are data streams that only contain the data for a specific purpose. So you get one stream for analytics, one stream for marketing, maybe a stream for R&D that you want to share externally, or in your blob, whatever. But that's what we do. So indeed, we connect the purpose to each data point, and then we transform it into privacy streams. And then teams indeed can just build their dashboarding, their products against such a stream.
They
don't have to, and they don't have to negotiate all the time by going back and forth.
Fantastic.
This is in a nutshell, I think.
Makes total sense.
What we should do.
And one last question, because I'm super thrilled and I'm getting passionate already about it. Is it then a software solution you build as a company, or is it both a software solution on top of consultancy, helping building the schemes and everything else?
This is a precarious question.
Yes.
You know why?
Yes.
You do? Yeah, no. So we started with a team of hardcore engineers with a really technical solution. But then, think back about the 2 premises, we also have to talk with the legal team. So you have to bring in different perspectives. So it's no longer only a technical solution. Indeed, we also help companies in those steps, in those coordination steps. So that's great. And I think we started as SaaS. And now we learned that many of the companies already are happy if they finally have all their data in one place. They have their certification, they have their whatever. So we also offer it in every cloud right now. We're more or less agnostic.
Okay, fantastic. And super thrilled to have you here. Makes total sense. So you are also a sort of subject matter expert. So we are even more keen to learn from you. We've prepared.
Well, you've talked to more lawyers about this than we have, so I can tell you.
Definitely. So we also prepared some theses. We haven't shared them with you in advance, so let's just go through them. Our first thesis is: do we need data governance? What do your customers say, Bart?
Depends on who you talk to, but if you talk to the data teams, they'd rather not. Because
makes things complex.
Slows them down. Don't put a data management team in between. No. So oftentimes the technical people say no because it will ruin my product pipeline, my release. We don't do it. Then legal and compliancy tell us the data is all across the place. How on earth can we mitigate legal risks if it's everywhere? So we need owners, we need processes. So it depends on who you ask. I would say in the long run, you do need it. You do need it. If you're going to scale, you're going to grow. You have to know.
If you truly want to create value out of it that is sustainable for the future, you need it.
And I think especially when you deal with sensitive data, it's crucial for building trust in the end. The people who are using your products, that the processes you have in place are solid, that the people are well educated. But then the question is, can you govern in a way that's not obstructing the velocity in organizations, right? That's I think without compromising.
I think one of the cool things you as a company did was shift left, go to the source of where the data starts developing. Then you have it done, right? If you have to do it in backwards, then it's super hard.
Partly, but that doesn't solve the whole problem because you might still have bad actors that take the private stream with some customer data in it and starts pushing that into Excel sheets that then get emailed around, and then you still have data governance needs after that step. But it definitely makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, and I mean, we as Microsoft have a solution, a service for this, right? It's called Purview. It's governing some of your data across clouds and even in your
Across
own. So how could it collaborate with what Baart and his company are doing?
Yeah, so basically what you would Purview works on the basis of registering sources and then running scans across those sources at particular schedules, and then in those scans also really going into the data, actually seeing what's in it, checking credit card numbers or email addresses or anything like that.
Yeah,
So it's kind of validating. Did you actually perform according to the schema that was designed for this?
Yeah.
And so, in order to connect Stream into that would just be a matter of Stream calling the API of Purview, which is based on an open source standard, so that's fairly easy to do. And then saying, okay, we're going to be supplying this data in this location with the schema, owners, all of that contract metadata you could just push in there, and then it would connect in. So that would be.
This is an opportunity for you, Baart.
I duly registered. Thank you. Yeah,
fantastic.
No, I think the observability. So where is data? I think what we currently offer, and people are really happy, they say, okay, so we put you guys at all incoming data from all applications, which is great. So we started as really streaming data platform.
So is data governance just a tool, implementing a tool?
No, definitely not. Is this already the next? Oh, there you go. There you go. No, but for us, it's definitely not, because, and I will touch upon that a bit more, that is also, of course, people and training. But what it does, it allows you to enforce compliance, and that's great. However, we also entered a few organizations where they told us, okay, so this is great, from now on, we have it in place. But we also have this kind of legacy warehouse.
Can you have a look at it?
Can you have a look? Actually, we're also still renting a building where there's on-prem. So we encountered that, of course, for new and fast organizations, they just implement us from the start, and it's great. However, there's also a lot of legacy, and helping out companies with that enormous burden, sometimes of 20, 30, whatever years of systems.
Data collection.
It's
applications without any owners
gone, whatever. Yeah.
But there's a lot of value just hanging around in those data centers, right? I mean, they have data and information that is valuable of creating new value streams, and they still want to do and go after it, right?
Yeah. So right now what we did is we had a few good drinks with the engineers, and now we're also, it's possible also to pull historical data sets through it. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be only streaming and only from now on. We have batch, and you can also kind of, I wouldn't say wash, but at least make your existing data privacy safe.
In the same way.
Okay. Fantastic. Cool. But it's not only a tool.
No. And this is, I think, where I'm talking from a privacy angle now, because I think security already has been there, but organizing security in an organization has shifted dramatically, I think, over the past years. Privacy, not so much yet. No. Sometimes it's legal.
It's starting.
Sometimes it's compliance. Sometimes it's even under finance. It's everywhere. Then it's also nowhere, right? Yeah. So what we probably see happening, and there are a few leaders, of course, who structured this well, so Netflix, Uber, IKEA is doing it right now, who really make a dedicated spot in the organization for privacy-enhancing technologies and privacy engineering.
Okay.
And I think,
officers.
Yeah, but a data protection or privacy officer is one thing, but really to build a team that can bridge what we also do, like the legal side, the compliance side, and the technical side. Yeah, that's really a new function, and sometimes it resides under the CISO right now, and I think that's actually quite a good spot.
Yeah, because they do understand that it is not just a tool that you implement and you turn it on and then you're done.
No,
it's getting the right people in place, building up processes, understanding what it means. Yeah.
So it's actually what you just said on having such a solution in place. It's not enough, because if someone takes a privacy stream and downloads everything on the it's
still gone.
Yeah. So you always have to put your measures in place and also still educate your people. Yeah. It's similar to security.
Okay. Yeah. Then this is also a fairly often heard sentence. My privacy is overrated. Only my employees can see it. So who cares?
Who made this provoking statement?
He did.
Okay. No, fully agreed. No, of course not. No, this is. I think what we currently see happening, and this is outside the whole solution space, it's a societal debate, I think, on
Yes.
what is privacy. And I think what we see happening also with the recent US developments is that there will be a rebalance, I would say, in the asymmetry in who has which information.
Yeah.
And people are more careful in what they share. They expect from companies more and more, and of course there's more and more privacy regulation also upcoming in the US.
Yeah, although the examples are also that people are still, willing to give up quite a lot of information if they can get access to certain things for free.
Yeah, and I think
cheaper.
Yeah, and I think this is not only relevant for privacy, but it's a principle that works pretty well with food, with everything. If
Yes.
it's cheap and accessible, then people go for it. So and now some people really are like, what? I'm a huge fan of regulation.
Yeah.
Sometimes there needs to be a body that protects the collective and individual interest for this. So
Yeah.
I'm very happy that...
And the EU is doing a
There you
pretty
go.
good job, right?
Yeah, they are.
They are building legislation.
Yeah,
Period.
and they always have been. It's the Brussels doctrine, they
Yeah,
lead.
yeah.
However, I do see that some others are front runners as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, it's not the only one.
No, it's the CCPA in California right now picking up, federal law coming in the US, but the AI Act, I think,
Yeah.
is interesting. I don't know what you think.
Yeah,
about
it is very interesting. Yeah, and that if only that finally there's something, because that's
Takes
There's
some time.
nothing.
there's nothing.
Can take some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just the fact that there's something is really good, and then there are some really good elements in there as well that also do a lot for this kind of thing.
And actually, one of the main problems with this statement is actually behind it's the second piece, actually, is only my employees can see it. So a lot of the solutions that we see out there is role-based access control. Yeah. We gather all the data, we put it in a warehouse, and then we say, okay, Marcel, you can see row X, Ed can see column Y, and whatever, and that's actually too late. So we really believe that purpose-binding access, for example.
But we know that the GGD in the Netherlands just gave everybody access, saying, then it works.
Then it works. Yeah, it works really well.
Yes.
But also not really well.
And you can download it and you can sell
Nice
it.
for your
on the
own,
black market.
own
Yeah,
usage.
if you have a
Yeah.
bad internet connection.
Yeah.
then-
So overrated? No. What we do see as well is that it oftentimes still is a nice to have.
Yeah.
And only when stuff goes wrong,
Yeah, do they
or
really?
or when you're in a very regulated industry, health, fintech, then people know in order to actually enter the market, I need to have my stuff in place.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
A data privacy breach is only a security risk.
Yeah, so I'm going to pose a question back here on what you guys think is the relationship between privacy and security.
So we see that if a privacy breach happens, people see it as a security risk for their company, right? That's often the case. The other way around is not per se true. Privacy is not always seen as a security risk, so to speak. So there's not a correlation between those in that sense. But we see that if data lands on the street, like you said, if it goes wrong, then it's a security risk, and people, have to report it, and everything happens. Otherwise, it's like not top of mind.
Well, and I think what needs to happen is that it becomes more than just a security risk by also putting a lot more reputation risk attached to it.
Yeah,
And
okay.
that's GDPR is doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
Because anytime a company gets a big fine from the EU
yeah.
or from their privacy regulator, that's probably going to be the bigger problem that they want to solve for when they have to solve privacy than only the security risk.
But how often do you get an email from a company
Yeah.
saying, sorry, we lost
I've
your
had
data?
a couple. I've had it once or twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I did as well,
they're starting, and
But I think it happened far more often at companies that I'm also a registered user. I've only had also, like you, one or twice, I had an email saying, sorry, we lost your data. Change your password.
Yeah. So I think that it's a very solid argument that there's reputational damage or risk
there should be.
involved.
That's more.
And
But there's
financial risk, because they get fines.
and of course you would hope that there are also moral arguments. But I think that the fields are very closely attached to each other, right? And there's a lot of definition debate going on, whether it's not price security or whatever, why these fields are not merging. Conceptually, I don't think They are, but they are highly related, and I think that if
We
you
also
have,
put them in the sentence. I mean,
there you go.
the title of the conversation
There you
is...
go. But I think making sure that you have your security very well in place also mitigates risks, of course, when there is a breach, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and I think the other way around as well. If you structure your privacy well, then the risk is lower when you have a breach. So there are definitely strong interdependencies, but it's definitely, of course, not only a security risk that we have here.
Yeah. What I really liked at one of the previous conversations we had was that they specified of each type of data also like your company is doing, but then at a customer level, where they use it and why they use it, and saying, okay, and this is how we contain it. And by the way, we do our utmost best to keep it secure, and accidents happen.
Yeah.
And we will tell you when it happens, but we can't promise 100% uptime, or
It's realistic.
yeah, and they really, very realistically, in simple words, not in lawyer speak.
Oh, and I think so. We recently had some posts on how you can explain a privacy policy.
Yeah.
Right? Because everyone just clicks and whatever, waves their data.
Like
and I think
200 pages.
Yeah, I think that's also an asymmetry, right?
Yeah.
Tons of legal persons writing this and covering their asses, and then the consumer with almost no power. So I do think that companies have a huge obligation to make it explainable what they do, also with regard to privacy.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh wow, yeah.
What do you think?
Probably, yeah.
True.
And not only in security, no.
They are
What
always.
is it?
Yeah.
Who made the famous statement about Crook Timber and? Yeah, you know it. Okay, there you go. So, I think.
Not just lock everything down and it's easy. Then nobody has access.
Yeah, but then there's also usability, of course, is
And
I would say
I
very
think
limited.
For privacy, that becomes even more than for security, because security, there's something to be said about locking down a lot of stuff. But for privacy, if you want people to actually use that data to build value, then there will be some privacy-sensitive fields being shared with those people.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. You can't target an advertisement on a particular city without giving the city.
Yeah, but I mean,
Up to
before we
point.
started this conversation, you said, let's not go into guns kill people and people kill people. Eh? In this case, it's often true that if you look at the security breaches that have been taking place, then it's always going back to people. And what we also learned, and I learned at Microsoft, if we see security leaks at our customers, it's often just people get bribed.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way to get into companies. Just bribe people.
Well, the example you gave with the Dutch GGD, so the health authorities, is exactly this as well, right?
Yeah.
Money for personal information.
Yeah.
You should remove that USB also, by the way. No, joking. But so it's still people, oftentimes, that pose the risk. But I think you should mitigate it with a combination. And data minimization is, I think, for me, a very good example. So you just gave the example. On the one hand, you want to be relevant for an individual, for example, by coaching people for their eating patterns or their health status to live a better life. On the other hand, you don't want all the information to be available as well. So I think the principle of data minimization is a beautiful example where you want to limit access, you want to restrain as much information as possible, but still be relevant.
Yeah.
And those dilemmas, and I think for me, you see sparkling eyes, because for me it's extremely interesting to work in that. It's not a gray area, but it's balancing, balancing value.
Left and right.
Yeah.
Truly a trade-off between those two.
Yeah, and ideally, the best example a Delft professor gave me, and they are really in ethics by design and privacy by design, is he says it shouldn't be a trade-off. With technology, we can finally build solutions that are no trade-off. So he always
turned it around.
Yeah, he always gives the example, like assume that you want to go out for exercise and it's raining, but you don't want to get wet. So those are two things that you cannot achieve unless you design an umbrella.
Yeah.
With solutions like differential privacy, it's possible to still be relevant, be personal, without compromising on privacy. Yeah. And that's, I think, technological innovation. Yeah. And that's where I'm super happy about that you can use technology to also unlock the value that it has without compromising on our values.
I like this.
Nice.
I actually want to just end the conversation here, although we still have.
No.
Yeah, but going back to the example, and I know it's looking in hindsight, looking back, but what happened at the GGD? Can we say that was just bad architected? It wasn't. It was rushed out. The software used for the wrong purpose. It was.
I'm not gonna. I cannot judge on the details. I think, but I think what they didn't do is take it in by design.
No.
Yeah.
If you think about data structures and architectures and data management systems from the beginning,
Yeah.
then I think this would have probably not occurred.
Yeah, and of course it doesn't help to have that much external pressure on that process.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's easy to judge as well because they were under enormous pressure to deliver.
That's why I said
Yeah.
it's hard to, by looking back. Then going to how we do security at Microsoft is we have the zero trust.
I would say zero trust.
Yeah. What do you think of that? That is by design, right?
Well, it's from 1994, I think.
Yeah,
it's very old.
Yeah, it's old, but it is a good principle, I think, to organize your way around. And I really liked that the title of these conversations more or less linked all the words, right? It was trust, it was security, it was privacy. And I think architectures can build trust amongst users, but also amongst consumers or data subjects. And I think they should. And the topic you just mentioned on explaining and showing to people how they use data is, or your data as a subject, is super important.
Yeah.
One of the best examples I've seen was a period monitoring app that tracks periods of females, and they can be coached and whatever.
Yeah.
And they wrote a series of blogs on the journey of your data point.
Yeah.
And they really explained step for step how they dealt with it, how they do it, which is great. And now, with recent legislation changing maybe a bit in the US, or very substantially, this has been a very hot topic at once, because even data that looked innocent, sensitive, but maybe not a personal security risk or with data
legal risk for
legal risk with very severe consequences and penalties, right now turn into that.
Yeah.
So for me, that also tells me that it's not static. So we should always be able to recalibrate what sensitive is, what a risk is.
Fair enough. And I missed one word, and we should have put it in the title of our conversations title, is transparency. Being transparent of why you collect the data, where you keep it, and what you do with it. Being transparent about it.
Yeah.
That helps a lot as well, right?
I think it helps a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a boundary condition for me for trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MFA is enabled.
Yeah, good for you.
We are secure.
You are super secure,
Yeah.
And good luck downloading the data, indeed. So it's...
But I mean, we make jokes of it, right? And we also try to make it a bit light and have the conversation as a starter. But this is also how people think, right?
Yeah.
I did something extra, so it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're in a different stage right now. To be honest, right, my mom is 70 plus, and my mom enabled MFA. For me, that implies that we're in a different stage of maturity of society. Kudos to mom. But it also means that...
Your dad isn't there yet.
Oh, no, he just uses his phone and whatever. Have to give him a YubiKey, I think. But so it's good, but it goes in steps. And I think we've come a long way in security as leading this already.
Yeah.
In privacy, to be honest, it's not there yet, right? Engineers are oftentimes super instrumental, and data scientists like, oh, I have this great data, I can build a great model, and let's go for it. Although I have to admit, these are also very value-driven people, right? If they don't like stuff or it's contrary to their values, then it's a block. So I think by teaching them more on how to engineer with privacy, around privacy, how you set up architectures in a privacy-respectful way, there's a huge potential to build knowledge in the people who technically implement or design all the stuff that you guys build, for example, in companies. But there is an educational gap that needs to be breached. And we're not there yet, definitely not. We're definitely not in the same space as security.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the tools and technologies like differential privacy, like confidential computing, those are also still not fully mainstream yet.
No,
we're starting to
They're
get
in
there.
early stages still,
Early
right?
stages.
early
Yeah.
stages.
Take synthetic data, right? All the people are
Yeah.
cheering on and like, yeah, synthetic data is great. It's great, but it's computationally
Yeah.
super heavy, which for some parties might be very nice. I don't know, but it's computational very heavy. It reduces some of the usability, so these technologies are really, and that's what makes them fun to work with. It's cutting edge. It's on the verge of what's possible, with trade-offs on is it actually meaningful.
Okay, fair
But
enough.
it will be, I think, a very, and I hope, of course, because I built a company on it, so I hope my assumptions are right here, that it will be a substantial field that people care about as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the biggest driver for you? Is it that companies want to create value, or is it legislation that they have to
Adhere to.
adhere to, or
Do you think for me, is the question point to me personally or to the customers we speak with?
to the customers you speak
Okay,
with?
so the customers there, you can roughly categorize them in either, hey, we want to be compliant, we want to have
We
no
do
legal
something.
risk. Yeah, with no legal risk, and someone saying, yeah, I promised that I would do something, some
Yeah.
initiative, so
Yeah,
I'm
so
doing some initiative.
If we give you some money, then
Well,
Yeah, then we are the initiative.
yeah.
Okay. The second bucket of customers, and I think that's for us a really interesting one, they say, okay, we think there are ways that we can unlock value that we are not able to do right now because
Help us.
help us untap it in a respectful way. So they see the value add
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
risk mitigation, but the value add of having good data. For example, make a recommendation engine X% more accurate by feeding it more data or stuff like that. So that's a really nice type of
Upside.
customer. But also type of customers to work with because they think in
They
value.
innovate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the third bucket, and that's also a nice category, is like, okay, we believe this is our core. It's not what you guys are doing, so come on, bring
us.
your technology. Yeah, give us speed, so bring velocity.
Okay.
I don't want to spend 3 engineers on building anonymized data pipelines. My people need to build customer value, so please organize away all the complexity for me. So those are the three. I think diminished risk, like legally and also security, because we do some key rotation and clever stuff. More value, more use cases, being able to untap the locked value in data. And the third component is optimize the scarce resources I have in this domain. They're costly, they're wanted by everyone.
Let's not to focus on actually using
not
the
on
data,
not on conditionals.
Yeah.
Let's organize that away.
Okay. I have another question, but I will keep it to the end. Let's go to number 7, because this is an important one.
Good for you.
Do you trust Azure?
Good for you.
Bart?
This is a very confronting question, of course. Actually, I do think that we started the conversation, I think it was even before the cameras were on, like, should you store your data locally somewhere on your own drive, encrypt them, or can you trust public clouds right now better with it? I think with the teams that companies like Microsoft, but for me it's more or less every cloud, have in place right now, you should be pretty smart to outclass that.
Okay.
Also in security standards. But trusting a system is more than trusting the technology for me, right?
Yeah.
So we discussed this a few times already in this conversation. You can have a beautiful platform in place with all these security things in
triple
place.
FA. everything.
Yeah, you can have the STRM Privacy streams running through, and then still, for example, transparency on what you do and why you do it are for me very important in building trust. So for me, this question is more a definition question on what is trust. And let's not even go into the question about what is I, but then to go into the question on what is Azure, because I think that's pretty clear.
No.
And I think it's market practice standard, and it's still like the capacity that's being probably invested in innovation there in security and privacy is unprecedented. So that's great. The components that I think are most meaningful in this statement is the middle word and maybe the first, but it's trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. And I mean, we discussed this up front as well, right? And in the sense that there's still sometimes a little cold water fear for public cloud.
Yeah.
And they say, we know, the iron I put the data on. I know the iron. I touched it. I went to the data center, I've seen it, I've held it, I've installed it. So I know where it's at. And that is still, I mean, for sometimes a blocker for people to go to public cloud, although I think it increases your security, it increases depending on how you use it,
Yeah,
of course. But
and of course there are some spots in the world where regulation just says no.
no, yeah.
No, you have to do it locally. So we just have had a customer who said, my regulator tells me I need to use a local, private, whatever. Okay, no.
Yeah.
So then we also have a solution, but I think in general, skill comes also with responsibility that becomes harder to manage.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that especially for the companies who are out of the first steps of building something and getting it live, for them, control and compliancy come also with systems that are growing. So then the complexity to manage is super hard.
Yeah.
And then, well, what are you going to do? Manage 20 locations with server racks? Well, probably not.
No, and then I mean, we can run it at hyperscale and have better solutions and services in place to help you create that value from the data you have, right? Probably.
I probably, you know best, but I think so. I think that there's an optimum, and probably a lot of companies reach it fairly early in their life cycle that they should focus on their core.
Yeah, exactly. And that is also a good point. I like it. Anything you wanted to add? No. Okay, fantastic. The last one, and this is a bit of this is something a little inside out. This is how we sometimes market our hypercloud, our Azure cloud, by saying it's not only secure, it's not only trustworthy, but it's also, we have all the compliance offerings.
Yeah.
And in some industries, those are mandatory, but we tend to have it out there. What do you think? Is it something your customers ask for?
They would elegantly not say, great.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
Not interested.
Not interested.
ISO certifications.
Yeah. Well, if they have to go through the process, they probably say, it's again for most of them. It's maybe not what I wish, but for most of them, it's just a burden that take it off my plate, right? Yeah. Organize it, and they're willing to fix it. They're willing to pay something for it. Yeah. If you come in with big fees for it, they're like, no. But normally you would say, okay, it's a boundary condition. Can you support us in it because it's too complex? We have, especially of course, when, for example, companies are active in multiple countries. Yeah. They don't know anymore. What's the local data retention policy? It depends per state in Germany. Yeah. How are you? You don't want your team to actually, I think, focus on that. So it's great that you have the offerings. Matching them to the right case, I think, would be best. Yeah. Also for your customers, right? Yeah. I wouldn't be impressed by 90. I would be impressed. Like we picked the 3 that are relevant for you.
That is a good. Can we build that with AI? Eduard?
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. You can build anything. You just need a lot of private data. But
there you go.
No, but I think we tend to market our cloud oftentimes and by using all the compliance offerings we have and
But sell simplicity, right? Don't sell complexity. And this feels for me still like okay, you have a breadth. It shows that you're doing.
Yeah, but I think the way I always look at this when I see that slide is we can't really. We can't take every customer to Azure to show them this is how we run our data centers. These are the processes.
So we have this covered. That's the.
But so this is the next best thing to doing that by showing. We have the certification. It is externally audited every 3 years or whatever the regulation is for that particular one. And here's the proof.
Yeah,
but the certificate.
Well, there are companies completely built on this one. I think Vanta just became the last unicorn doing the SOC 2 certification because it's so complex for organizations. Yeah, okay. And so administrationally heavy that actually there's a lot of value in this statement, but it's covered in complexity right now.
Yeah, and well, we had this the third conversation, and it's been really interesting that the first one was with a partner who works a lot in retail, and he said, this nobody cares. The second one was much more public sector. Yeah. Every RFP, there's a whole list that you need to have. Yeah. And if you don't check all of them, then you're not even
otherwise
in the process.
You're out.
And then you're like, somewhere in the middle, and depending on the customer, they either ask for it or they just don't want to know and have it covered.
Any specific industry you as a company are focusing on, or
targeting
are you
right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it those regulated industries?
Yeah, it is. And especially the companies that are a bit smaller, so scale-ups.
Yeah.
Right, they just raise money and not like, they're not in their garage anymore.
No.
Yeah.
But if you want to build a new product in health and you want to go out there and put it live and you need to have your anonymized data streams and stuff, people are like, yeah, whatever. So it's health, it's fintech, it's HR, surprisingly, but a lot of sensitive data of staff. And I think for me that's also, it's more or less a personal favorite, is also all the data around privacy in kids. So toys contain a lot of sensors right now, educational software. So the progress of many kids is being measured throughout their very young lives. I think that's very precarious data. That most of the parents right now can, in some countries, they can just look at what grades real time coming in. Like, is my kid in the school? Is he or she making homework? Is pretty invasive, also for the privacy of kids, but also later on in your life, right? If you're, it is sensitive.
It becomes
data.
like a normal part of your resume that you need to supply your primary school records. That would be,
So for us, that's a domain I personally would really like to explore. And there's also upcoming regulation again in the US on this piece as well. So it's but everywhere there's sensitive data, of course we can do something, but there's more incentive to move in those industries because it's just it's a requirement that you have your.
It's not optional for them to care.
You have to.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Anything we can team up? I mean, going back, I told you previously down the conversation, I had a good idea. But you know, the mission of Microsoft is to enable every person, every organization on the planet to achieve more. And you can help organizations achieve more value out of their data by using your service.
Yeah.
So I think there's a good red line between what you're doing and what we're doing at Microsoft. How can we team up?
Good question. Well, I think I already gave an example. Like so before you can enforce and more or less translate your privacy policy into, hey, what does it mean for my data pipelines? There are some solutions like Purview that help you categorize, catalog.
Yeah.
So that's a great starting point for us. We can just kind of connect that, and then we do the actual transformations on your data.
Great.
That could be one.
Yeah.
And I think what really helps, of course, is that there are segments of customers that are big enough that they have a whole Microsoft environment already. Well, then it would make sense that you can just click us and implement us in the marketplace and just put us into your Azure landscape.
Then by this, I invite you to have this conversation with me.
Nice, we are invited.
For now, I want to thank you for this conversation. Is
Lovely.
there anything you want to add, delete, or change from what you've said in the last 40 minutes?
I don't think so. No.
All is said.
Always said. Yeah. Adding, as I said, I think I would really hope that the privacy realm becomes bigger and merges with security, and then together, like showcasing trust in how you can use technology to more or less enable or unlock value. I'm really looking forward that matures more and more, so we become at least on par with the security angle. That would be really good.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Anything you want to add?
No.
Then on that behalf, thank you for watching. This was the third and last episode of Conversations on Data Governance, Privacy, Security and Trust. We'll keep you posted on next subjects and topics. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.